It is the year 2348, and Florence is taken by the Black Plague. Feelings of desperation and helplessness are roaming through the streets and reigning over people's hearts as carriages full of deceased roll between buildings. Nobody can hide from the plague. In every corner of the streets and in every room of its buildings, demise is sitting. Badessa's house isn't an exception. Laying before her, her sister is uttering her last bitter words about her unfulfilled life, as others from the family stand nearby. It is never safe to be this close to a person affected by the plague, but Badessa doesn't care. When the girl draws her last sigh and transfers into another world, she even goes as far as to kiss her forehead. This must be a great idea. It is only after her family runs away from her and she looks down on her deceased sister that she realizes what she has done. Nicoluccio, a priest from Florence, follows all the hygienic norms as well. There are only a few exceptions when he doesn't. It is all understandable though. His family is being buried in a communal grave, and he wants them to be together. Instead of face masks, people wear flowers while walking in the streets. Rose is one of them, but a very abrupt situation forces her to take it off. A man who seems to have been in love with her for a long time kisses her in the streets, saying that he is infected, and therefore, she must be too. It is extremely upsetting to watch her go back and forth around the plaza as groups of people try to get away from her. She is no longer accepted in any community. In an abandoned church, 8 women are gathered that afternoon. Planning to leave the city, they are creating a plan and voicing the last of their desires when one of them, seemingly infected by the plague, says that she won't be coming. The others do not object much. They know that they should not push her into coming with them. According to their plan, they will go to Cornwall and domesticate an abandoned villa. Demise won't find them that easily there. Even though the prospect of fleeing is relieving, their conversations are still dramatic and stressful. Suddenly, 3 men appear with them as well. Their names are Dioneo, Filostrato, and Panfilo. It doesn't get more Italian than that. They are lovers of 3 of the women, and they are eager to leave the city with them as well. The villa is safe and beautiful. The relief is so strong, and the actual fear is still so irresistible, that the poor young people have no idea whether to play with blankets or pray to God for mercy. Villa belongs to Fiammetta. So instead of playing with them, she prefers to immerse herself in the memories of her parents. Once she is back at the company, Nefile voices a plan she came up with. To pass the time and fight desperation, each and every individual must tell a story. Subject and length are irrelevant. The stories will definitely solve all their problems. That night, one additional rule was voiced. There must be no lovemaking around the villa. Envy is the devil's strong tool, and they must not let him have it. The first night is tormenting for almost all, but when the morning comes, all gather to hear the first story about love, revenge, and plague, the most abhorrent of subjects. Catalina, one of the main characters of this story, is suddenly struck by the Black Plague. Living with her merchant mother's boy husband, she is sent away from the city. Before she can reach the house in the countryside, however, Demise catches up to her. Instead of going back, the servants decide to bury her in the crypt of some abandoned church, and it all seems as if nobody will ever know where her body rests. One man, however, named Gentile, has been following her everywhere she goes. Catalina has been the love of his life for a long time, so he has nowhere else to go. Seeing her lying in the crypt is as painful as it gets. His love is gone, and he finds himself lying beside her on the cold stone. He has already defeated the Black Plague once, so perhaps he can do it again. Taken by some mysterious intent, he tries to pour all his life energy into her mouth, touching her heart, and suddenly feels her heart beeping. Fear is what he feels initially. Whatever is happening, something divine must truly be at work. That night, Catalina is brought inside the house of Gentile's mother. Seeing how much her son loves this woman, the lady of the house tells him to go to his room and prepare a bath for Catalina. She accepts her with open arms and congratulates her for surviving the Black Plague. In this place, Catalina will be safe and loved. The first thing she sees when waking up the next morning is Gentile, standing in the doorway politely. After telling her what happened in the crypt, he asks her to remain here until she is well. Her family thinks she is gone, and they are not waiting for her. Furthermore, he is planning to organize a banquet in the fields to which both his and her friends will be invited. It is at this banquet that Catalina's well-being will be revealed to her husband. It will be a wonderful surprise. One day passes ordinarily then, but the night brings magic once more. After being touched by Gentile's hand, Catalina's heart feels different. Attempts are made at intimacy the next morning, but it is all futile. Catalina is not willing to take a step forward in their relationship. Time flies then, and the day comes when the day of the banquet comes. Gentile doesn't reveal Catalina until he tells a hypothetical story about a servant who got ill. The servant's initial patron kicks him out of his house and abandons him to kick the bucket, after which the servant is taken by someone else. a kind gentleman who cures him. After telling this story, Gentile raises his voice and asks a question. With whom should the servant stay? Nicoluccio, Catalina's husband, comes out in the middle and answers that the servant belongs to the kind stranger. This is just perfect for Gentiles. As the banquet progresses, he reveals Catalina and causes a mild commotion. It is a terrifying miracle in everybody's minds, a task carried out by some devilish powers. As seconds go by, the commotion sets down, and the right to decide is given to Catalina. Tension rises as silence falls. Nicoluccio falls to his knees in front of his resurrected wife, but, as expected, he is coldly rejected. The lady from paradise will never return to her former pit of desperation. The story, not including the exception of some necrophiliac tendencies, of course, is liked by all. The next story is told by one of the young men, and it is much more cheese than the last one. It is about a man named Calandrino, a man who works at an artist's workshop as a handyman. His cognitive prowess isn't very promising, thanks to some developmental issues, but he's loyal and kind. As the story suggests, two painters who also work in the workshop, Bruno and Buffalmacco, constantly give him a hard time. One day, they decided to lure him into a prank. Standing nearby Calandrino, they start talking about a magical stone that makes everyone who touches it invisible. Their acting is really believable. So naturally, the artist and the scholar wish to learn more immediately. Thanks to his incredible detective skills, he even learns its exact whereabouts. Together with the painters, he goes to the location there and starts looking for the stone like a hound. He knows it should be a black one, so, picking up the first black stone he finds, he looks over at the painter to see if he has vanished. Immediately, the painters start acting as if they no longer can see Calandrino. The young man is thrilled, excited for the acquiescence of the magical stone. He stands his ground and tries to remain as still and silent as the dark matter of the universe, but instead, he only manages to resemble an opossum, faking lifelessness. Cruelly, then, the painters act as if they are angry at Calandrino and start shooting rocks at him. The man makes no noise. There is just too much at stake for him. Once the painters leave, they tell everyone at the city entrance to act as if they do not see Calandrino. It is going to be the park of the century, after the dancing plague, of course. Everyone in the city plays their part well, and Calandrino finds himself as happy as ever. The story, however, takes a very dark turn when he gets back home. His wife doesn't know anything about the prank, so she acts normal and is beaten cruelly by Calandrino, who thinks that she must be a witch, a servant of the devil, who sucked the magic from his black stone. The beating creates a lot of hate and mind-fogging anger in the girl. Once Calandrino sits down to eat, she picks up his stone, sneaks up on him from behind, and the story is cut short by the commotion at the table when the teller reaches the end. Nobody likes the sudden twist of the mood, but as the young man says, their anger is unjustified. If only they had waited a little longer, they would have heard that the painters got there just in time and saved Calandrino. With time, the relationship between the husband and wife got back to the status quo as well. As communal work begins the next morning, bread is baked. The joint effort makes them forget about the solitude and isolation, but the sorrows of their current occupation soon slip between their thin defenses. They have left everything behind. Far from home, they know nothing of their loved ones or of their homes, but being together in this new home, they still manage to find something to laugh about. They are young and free. They have food, water, beautiful fields, and each other, and it is enough. With the coming of the next day comes the third story as well. Told by one of the girls, it depicts a duke named Tancurdi, who had to give her daughter to an elderly, high-status man. He never would have done it unless it was necessary for Gismonda to marry someone. The duke's mood gets dark, but in only 7 years, the elderly husband passes away, and Gismonda starts her journey back to her father's. Delighted, Tancurdi walks over to his good friend, steel master, and talented artist Guiscardo, to share his happiness. The young man and the duke make a wonderful duo as Guiscardo shows the old man a piece that he made for his daughter. It is a beautiful cup, and as the duke says, Gismonda will be delighted to use it every morning. The girl is clad entirely in black when she comes back. On the basis of the respect she still holds for her late husband, she states to the duke the next morning that she will reside in her chambers for a month. During this time of mourning, she doesn't want to be disturbed, not even by her own father. Tancurdi doesn't believe his ears. The love and friendship between him and Gismonda must be fading, and even the thought of losing this relationship brings fear to his heart. Upset that his daughter won't reconsider her decision, he storms out of her chambers with the intention of making her feel bad about her decision. A month goes by then, and when the grieving process comes to an end, it all seems as if Tancurdi will never marry her again. Very soon, however, Gismonda and Guiscardo meet each other. The connection is abrupt, and without a doubt, strong. Thoughts of him are hard to resist for Gismunda as she goes about the rest of her day. Tancredi urges her to visit him and express her gratitude for the gift as well, but Florence is huge, and his talent is unquestionable. There is no doubt that soon he will have to quit Tancredi's service. Furthermore, a very unusual incident happens during the conversation between the daughter and the father. Taking the cup in her hands, Gismund suddenly sees a moth drowning inside. Her reaction is reactive. Fear smites her and makes her throw away the cup as quickly as possible. Gismunda and Guiscardo meet each other for the second time soon after. The initial conversation between them involves some conflict, but the two soon find a pleasant thing to talk about. Naturally, it is the love Gismunda knows he feels towards her. As the cold breeze of an upcoming hypothetical farewell waits around nearby, Gismunda decides to eliminate the chance of it ever becoming a reality. She asks Guiscardo never to stay with her and never to go to Florence. This request is going to be very easy to fulfill for the young man. In fact, he's over the moon with happiness after hearing this. Taken by this meaningful emotion, he shows her something he's been working on for many years. Gismunda must be both overwhelmed and happy to see a secret door that leads to a spiral staircase going directly up to her room. It must have taken years to create, so it's only a little creepy that Guiscardo has it. Still, now that Gismunda sees her room from Guiscardo's perspective, everything seems much more beautiful. The ordinary life is colored by the love they feel for each other. Tancredi collects some berries the next morning and brings them to her daughter as a gift. The girl, however, is with Guiscardo now, and she won't return until the evening. As time crawls on, the Duke falls asleep in his daughter's room and wakes up only after the couple enters through the secret door. Hiding behind curtains, he watches and listens as her daughter lies naked with her lover in bed. That night, he imprisons Guiscardo. Taken by rage, he's been told even by his servants to take this news calmly and not do anything that will hurt him or her daughter. The end is in his eyes, and he won't have anybody's consultation, but the Duke wants to speak with his daughter until he decides what to do with Guiscardo and Gismunda. The love he used to feel towards his daughter has become toxic, and it has started to erode the kindness in his heart, and what is left is only greed and jealousy. Taken by these terrible feelings, he faces his daughter in the next scene, and acting tough, threatens her maliciously. The glimpse of kindness, however, hasn't fully been sucked out of him just yet. Seeing her daughter stand firm and brave in the face of demise, and watching her defend her love with meaningful passion, Tancredi realizes just how helpless and pathetic he is at this moment. As tears come to his eyes, he sits down from anxiety and thinks to himself that her daughter is right. He would never harm her. Evil, however, finds its way between the defenses of his kindness. Coming out of Gismunda's room, he orders his servants to murder Guiscardo, thus shortening the life of his daughter as well. The two lovers are buried together, and their relationship continues on the other side, unchained and free. The sadness that the story brings overwhelms the entire company back on the meadow in front of the villa. After sharing some warmth to calm strong feelings, they go for a swim in the lake nearby to wash the sorrow off their skin. That's right! Who needs psychologists? The need for a psychologist decreases even more as another story is told afterward. As always, one of the young men tries to wash away the gloom with a funny story. The tale he introduces speaks of two noble girls, Isabetta and Usimbalda, who are both unaware of the future that awaits them. They are both going straight to the monastery. Usimbalda makes a great abbess, but Isabetta fails to put on the mask of a nun. Being the most beautiful inhabitant of the monastery, one day she meets the handsome Leonetto, a man who tags along with her family during one of the visits. The connection is abrupt, the love is irresistible, and as a result, Leonetto appears in her cold, dark room that night. Unfortunately, one of the nuns sees them in bed, engaged in passionate lovemaking, and rushes downstairs to ruin everything. What an ungodly thing she saw. The word about this unutterable heresy spreads like bacteria between the nuns. The abbess soon learns about it too, so she is forced to kick out her own man as well. It is impossible for him to run, however, so Usimbalda is forced to order him into a large chest. It is only after the man disappears out of sight that the girl puts on her strict abbess look and bangs down Isabetta's door. Everything is done in cruel silence. Isabetta is wrapped in a cloth and taken away, and Leonetto is imprisoned in her room. Naturally, the strict mother gives Isabetta a very hard time. Forcing her to kneel down, she curses her in front of everybody and scolds her with her last words. At this moment, the resentment on her face seems so real that it almost feels as if she would prepare the darkest corner of hell for Isabetta herself. Everything, however, changes when the most beautiful young girl in the monastery notices something very unusual about the abbess's traditional attire. Instead of the ordinary and holy headkerchief, Usimbala is wearing a man's trousers on her head. Naturally, the witty girl uses this opportunity to save herself at this moment. Looking into the abbess's eyes, she points out how the laces of the trousers are dangling down from her belly and advises them to tie them together before speaking this strictly. Some laugh and some lose respect for the authority figure, but Usambalda gets confused only for a second. Collecting herself, she changes the tone of her words immediately and starts chirping like a completely different person. It is hilarious to see her go about the meaning of sin and how important and irresistible it is for a human that is made of clay. We are all doomed to be drawn by the sweetness of human wickedness, and there is no reason to hide it. And so, with this, Usambalda returns the keys to Isabetta and tells her to go back to his man, while she will do the same. The story that comes straight after this last one is about a falcon and its master, named Federico. Young, hands-on, and wealthy, he has everything but the things he truly wishes for. It is the love of Giovanna. For years, he's been trying to get her attention, but the young girl keeps ignoring him coldly. It all seems as if happiness is unattainable for the young man, as all his wealth is taken away by creditors. The poor Federico lets them take everything, but his falcon starts living on the only property he has left. It is a wonderful house, built on the top of a small hill, encompassed by green fields. The beauty of the area, however, is not enough to make him happy, nor is the hunting with the falcon. 2 years go by then, and one day, Federico catches a glimpse of Giovanna playing in the yard of her country house. From a local farmer, he learns that the girl has been living here for a year now. Her son is sick, and he needs to be away from the city. One thing is especially noticeable for Federico in this scene. Giovanna is wearing only one color, and it's black. As it seems, she is mourning her late husband. She is single. Taken by this sudden good news, Federico sends his falcon over to say hello. Giovanna's son becomes friends with the bird immediately, and he follows him back to where Federico is waiting for them. As the three become good friends, Federico promises to come by every morning and teach him how to hold the bird. That night, however, the smile was washed away from the boy's face. A terrible fever strikes him hard and torments him throughout the entire night. The next morning, however, he hears the cry of the falcon outside, catches a glimpse of it among the clouds, and dreams start roaming in his head. The thoughts of pain and fear are bested by this dream, and the boy pleads with his mother to get him this falcon. Instead of this predatory bird, however, he gets a harmless puppy. This won't do, of course, so one day, Giovanna visits Federico to eat with him as a friend. The man is over the moon at first. His love is here to spend some time alone with him. But once the initial emotional effect is gone, Federico realizes something very awful. It is not hunting season, so he has practically no food in the house. Giovanna offers him some help and expresses her will to get inside the house with him, but the man rejects her help. He asks her politely to wait here, before he prepares something and comes back. The tension rises as the young man turns his house over in search of food. As the desperation comes, the falcon lands on his shoulder. He probably doesn't understand the state in which his owner is. In Federico's mind, this is the only chance he will ever have with Giovanna. Suddenly, after tramping back and forth in his house, he looks over at the falcon and makes a terrible decision. For his love, he will have to save his only friend. Standing up, he approaches the bird, fights with himself for a while, and does what he thinks is necessary to acquire the love of Giovanna. A soup is made, but Federico is destroyed as a person. Sitting in front of Giovanna in the next scene, he fails to concentrate and takes no part in eating. Finally, after finishing her dinner, the girl states the reason for her visit. She wants his falcon as a gift. She needs it desperately, or her son will perish. No words can describe the tragedy in Federico's eyes. The realization comes abruptly to Giovanna as well. She has eaten the cure for her son. Another truth, however, is that Federico sacrificed his dearest friend, and he did it for her. Soon after, Giovanna's son passes away. A year goes by, and when Giovanna decides to remarry, she can only think of one suitable partner. It is the man who is poor in the land, but richest in the soul. Getting back to the villa, one of the young men finds a stream of fresh water, with berries growing all around it. There is only one person left to tell his story. It is Dioneo. But as it seems, he has something else on his mind. That night, instead of telling his story, he coined the idea to get back to the city. Fine weather can only last for so long, and fairy tales are never going to become a reality. The reality is the Black Plague, and if they want to be like the heroes of the stories, they must face the dangers instead of hiding from them in a wonderful villa. A storm comes then, and after deciding to leave the villa tomorrow, the company runs outside into the pelting rain. These days of safety and friendship will forever be cherished.